It's the king of banter, Joe Lanza. And the world of MLW never stops, and neither does the MLW TV review podcast, Fusion Dish, with your host, the queen of the jobbers, Aaron Quinn.
Being Sports. MLW Fight Lane. This is the only place to catch Major League Wrestling. Fans, don't waste a moment. Sign up now for just $7.99. Fight Plus. Witness MLW Live.
Welcome everyone to another installment of Fusion Dish. My name's Aaron Quinn. We're coming off of last Saturday's Never Say Never show on Fight Plus. And I understand I'm a few days late with this. Had to take care of a lot of things around the house, and it was an incredibly busy wrestling weekend between all of my normal viewing and the start of the G1. And then I watched half of the show, got caught up in some other things, finished the show today, and I am here with all your MLW news, notes, and of course, a review of last Thursday's Fusion. Now, it seems that Fusion is premiering on Thursdays now. I feel like it was on Wednesdays right before Never Say Never, but we're definitely on a Thursday schedule now. I don't know 100% when we are going to see matches taped at the tapings prior to Never Say Never. But I will let us know as we go through the review today when the matches we saw today were taped. The answer may surprise you. And just a couple news and notes coming out of the show last Saturday. Of course, the next MLW event is going to be Fury Road. That's scheduled for September 3rd, back at the 2300 Arena. They have already announced that that'll be the debut of Matt Cardona, as well as we have a main event scheduled for that show, but we will be talking about that at the end of the show. Now, on our last regular episode of Fusion Dish, we took a look back at the 2021 MLW Open Draft, and one of the persons drafted at that time was Slice Boogie of the Santino Brothers show over WrestleMania weekend, and he's appeared in other places, of course, the NWA among them. This past week, Slice Boogie announced that he is now an ex-MLW star. This is courtesy of 411 Mania. He announced that his contract with the company had expired. He posted to Twitter, "My MLW contract expired today. I am officially a free agent. Very excited for what the future holds for the next step of my career. I've come back from a ruptured Achilles injury in August in the best shape of my life. You can see me on a major TV network sooner than later." He did sign with MLW back in June 2001, obviously with dealing with an injury, and is gone from his MLW deal. The mystery of the MLW contract continues. Also, to follow up on Timothy Thatcher following Never Say Never, I know there might have been a little... it was a little bit unsure if that was a angle or not, the concussion finish of his match with Tracy Williams at the end of that show. But this week, in the most recent Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer did report that Thatcher suffered a legitimate concussion when the match was going on. That's why the match was stopped. There was not an angle there. And so let's go ahead and get into this week's show. Show started out with a post-match press conference from Alex Kane with Mr. Sharp. It's good that Sharp is with Kane. The only flaw in his game at the moment for where he needs to be is certainly that the promo skills are not entirely there. But Kane, once again, just shows his appreciation for the Bombardier Fight Club, as well as hypes up that they are on a roll. Yeah, he's still struggling on the promos, but overall, it's very much carried by the vibe and the entire entourage that surrounds him, and you can get a lot of mileage out of that while the promo game continues to be worked on. Also, there's cans of Liquid Death on the front of the press table, so I don't know if that's an official sponsorship or not, but very much in the same way that Mountain Dew will adorn all over the table at many a WWE Premium Live event. Brand new opening to Fusion this week. Same song, but it does feature all of our new champions, including Delmy Exo and Alex Kane. And I always really like that. That's something the ECW show used to do, was to put the new champions at the very end of the video package to remind you who the champions were. And that brings us right into a promo from Taya. Taya tonight will be getting her rematch against Delmy Exo for the women's featherweight title. So it'll be exciting to see how that one goes. And then we're going to go right into our first match, which is indeed Taya Valkyrie versus Delmy Exo for the MLW Women's Featherweight Championship. Taking a look to see when this match was originally taped, believe both of the matches that we saw today were taped the day of Battle Riot 5. That was back on April 4th. So this match happened just over 3 months ago. Of course, not too, again, as we mentioned in their original title switch, that's not too surprising considering that Taya has been in AEW for more than 2 months now. This was also the same show that had our Samoan SWAT Team Second Gear Crew match from last week, as well as possibly, there may be some other matches from this that we see still. But it looks like the majority of this taping has been shown on TV, so hopefully we're able to go forward with the new tapings sooner rather than later. Delmy cuts a quick promo here before the match, saying that she plans to send Taya packing back up to Jacksonville. And so if this was taped back on April the 8th, let me check here and see when Taya actually debuted in AEW. Let me just throw this over to the Fusion desk, the Fusion Dish computer, and calculate when Taya actually made her AEW debut. Now, she did make her AEW debut on March 15th, so this match was taped after she made her debut. That comment then makes total sense, and more than likely very much known that her deal was done and she was up. So we are well into Taya's AEW tenure now. So, pretty basic match here. Again, these two don't have much chemistry, and you're never going to get an amazing match out of Taya, and Delmy is still a work in progress, and I hate to say that considering she's been wrestling for a number of years, but at least she's new to MLW TV. The MLW ring, now that I look at it, it's very small, and it reminds me a lot of the WCW ring, which was also incredibly small. They do a lot of brawling on the outside, as does seem to be customary. Back in the ring, Taya's controlling with some stomps and some leg drops and a neck arm hold, as I have written here, which more than likely is one of those type of arm rest holds that you would see on Monday or Friday nights. Taya then goes and does the forearms that Sheamus does on the apron. I don't really like a lot of times when moves like this are copied, especially well-known, overdone signature moves. Does give John Hennigan, who is on commentary, a chance to make a Sheamus reference. So fun. Delmi Exo comes back with a backstabber. She gets some strikes and some kicks of the Fisherman's for 2. Taya comes back with the curb stomp, which is one of her finishers. Also gets a 2 count. Going back and forth here, the Road to Valhalla is countered with a roll-up for 2. And in what I think is one of the more used MLW finishes, Taya is knocked off the ropes. I believe Taya is pushed into him. He's knocked off the ropes. And then Delmi goes with a very slow La Mystica into an armbar. Taya taps. And that forces Matt Stryker on commentary to admit that she won fair and square and eat his words. So Taya is theoretically done with the promotion now. And that is the last we have seen of her. We then get a replay of MSL turning on Microman. The week before, of course, that included a kick to Microman and a running power slam by Davey Boy Smith Jr. That goes into the reveal of MSL drafting Matt Cardona at Never Say Never. And again, Cardona will be coming in at Fury Road in September. We get a quick replay of Don King's promo and the cameo from the Fight Plus special. We're then outside Court Bauer's locker room with Sam, the interviewer. Court pops his head out, says never do business with Don King, and then exits the scene. From there, we have our next draft pick. We're in the 3rd round of the always exciting MLW Open Draft. And drafted is O'Shea Edwards. Now, O'Shea Edwards has been in MLW. He's been with the Boombaye Fight Club. And so it looks like this is more of a signal that he is going to be on a long-term contract with MLW, an official deal with MLW. He, of course, wrestled at the TV tapings that we saw that occurred before Never Say Never. And so that's probably where we will see him make his official in-ring debut for MLW. So moving up from Entourage to the roster. So that's good. Otherwise, O'Shea has been around in a lot of work in CZW. He was in the Battle Riot, as well as made some appearances in AEW Dark. Still Matt Cardona is easily the most surprising name. And we'll see where it develops for everyone who has been drafted so far. Next match we have is Ken Broadway versus T.J. Crawford. And I am just double checking to see when this match may have been taped. Now, I do believe that more than likely this occurred. Well, I think I have an idea when this was. This is a match, Ken Broadway versus T.J. Crawford. 2 men I'm not entirely familiar with. I know I've seen Ken Broadway's name before. This was taped back on April the 6th at the War Chamber event. We have seen matches from this show as well. We are eating up the remainder of these tapings. Match starts out with Ken Broadway hits a really good lariat. TJ Crawford with a powerbomb for 2. We have just a lot of moves here in this match. These guys going back and forth. TJ Crawford playing the heel. As someone who is seeing these gentlemen for the first time, though, Ken Broadway seems to have just a more ready for television gimmick. He has much more TV ready gear, as well as the whole more arrogant, cocky, throwing a lot of money around, the kind of stuff that's made for an entrance and is made to just be in front of a crowd and be in front of the cameras. TJ Crawford still looked pretty good here as far as the execution of everything. He hits a stunner for a 2 count. Broadway makes the comeback, lifts into a German, and gets the win. Short match here, about 6 minutes, just a showcase for both men. Crawford reminded me of someone very much in the, pardon, the Davey Richards kind of style and that lineage. I was going to say also Davey Andrews. I'm thinking of other people that I could name that seem to wrestle that kind of style. It's a lot of kicks, a lot of MMA influence, structured in with some other suplexes and stunners and whatnot. But this seemed like mostly a showcase for Ken Broadway, who seemed much more of the developed, ready-go, mid-card type talent. We then get a recap of the Samoan SWAT team losing the titles to the Calling at the pay-per-view, and then we are announced the opening round matches for the Opera Cup. First round matches, and you'll want to hold on, get a pen and paper handy. This is a huge tournament, so you want to make sure that you are ready for this. Opening round matches are going to include Davey Boy Smith Jr. taking on Calvin Tankman. We're also going to see Tony Deppen versus Hot Sauce Tracy Williams. Okay, that's it. That's the Opera Cup. It is these two matches that we'll be seeing. I'm very excited for this. I am not going to reveal when these were taped, or actually not going to reveal how much of this has been taped already. But it looks like the Opera Cup is going to unfold before our eyes over the next few bits here, and I'm sure we will be able to see all of that on future episodes of Fusion. But we definitely are having a bit of a situation where we will, this has all been taped already, so we'll see it. I don't know why is this tournament 3 matches? I'm trying to find when the first round matches were taped, because I found when the finals were taped. I'm seeing this as it's happening. Okay, I found it. Okay. Well, I think we're really going to enjoy it. It's 3 matches. Very surprising. The oldest tournament in wrestling, and obviously, by the sides of this tournament, the most prestigious. Mance Warner joins the booth after his huge victory at Never Say Never. And that gets us into our main event, which is Willie Mack taking on John Hennigan and Leo Rush. This is deemed a number 1 contenders match for the world title, of course, currently held by Alex Kane. And so let's find out who we have as the next potential challenger for Alex Kane and the Bombardier Fight Club. Of course, John Hennigan is accompanied with Sam Adonis. They waste no time jarring with Mance Warner there out on the announce booth. Matt Striker, by the way, much toned down. Now, I don't know when the commentary from this was taped. It looks like by everything, because they did have they did have Mance Warner out there with them, that this was taped at the time. So I think we probably won't be able to judge where Striker's commentary is until the next set of tapings start to air, and then we might not be able to see if there's any change in his commentary until the event in September. So we'll just see how that goes. This is a 3-way. This went about 8.5 minutes here. Johnny and Leo start on the outside debating who is going to face the always imposing Willie Mack. They eventually decide to go ahead and double team. While they're double teaming Willie, we are told we're going to get an update on the incident that happened during Becca's live performance next week. So if you were waiting on pins and needles to find out what happened with that crazed fan who blatantly went after Becca during her performance, you'll have to wait till next week, MLW fans. We'll find that later. Basic 3-way spots here. Willie and one of my favorite parts was John Hennigan and Leo Rush interacting. They exchanged kicks. They exchanged evasions. Of course, John Morrison went for his springboard kick about 3 or 4 times in this match to varying degrees of success. And really the standout here, to me, is always Lio Rush. Lio has this way of stopping and starting and moving around the ring and moving at angles that aren't necessarily just rope to rope, corner to corner, but he's always pivoting and moving in different ways that build an idea of how aware he is of where he is in the ring, and it's really fun to watch. And he definitely did some fun stuff with Morrison, Hennigan. They're very capable of working together. I still think Hennigan has some value, especially in matches like this. He's not the kind of guy that I need to see pushed anywhere at this point in his career, but in situations like this, he's certainly an asset and did not bring the match down at all. They do switch off. We get some bits with Willie and Hennigan. We also get some bits with Willie and Lio. Lio eventually does take the stunner from Willie Mack. And then, like we saw earlier, Hennigan collided with Sam Adonis, who got up on the apron. And that allows Willie Mack to get the roll-up on Hennigan to get the win. So that is 2 matches on this show that involved Hennigan taking a bump either on the apron or into someone on the apron for the win. And that is going to give Willie Mack a shot at the MLW World title, which has already been announced. So that is going to be your main event for MLW Fury Road on September the 5th. Alex Kane versus Willie Mack, September 3rd, my apologies, at the 2300 Arena in South Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Willie Mack, Alex Kane, that should be a good match. It certainly is a different type of opponent than Hammerstone. Willie Mack is going to bring a little bit more of a high-flying athletic style. It's also going to be interesting to see where the crowd goes with that, because they're going to be in the same arena, and it's very clear that the crowd in that building was very much behind Alex Kane, was behind the push that he had been getting in MLW. But I think it's much easier to root against someone like Hammerstone, who had been the champion for so long. He was getting the same old shit chants. And he has a very prototypical, you would push this wrestler in the big company kind of look. Willie Mack is a tenured veteran, but he's also never gotten like the huge push anywhere that he's gone. And so he still has, even, over a decade into his career, have this underdog charisma and innate likability. Now, it does seem that MLW is set to keep Alex Kane and the Bombay Fight Club as heels, despite the fan sentiment behind them. And that's fine if they want to go that way. I mean, appearing with Don King is certainly a heel move. And so it'll be interesting to see how the crowd reacts. I could see them going along with it. Not a phrase I like using a lot, but in this case it seems like the plan is for Willie Mack to be a face and for Alex Kane to stay a heel. And that if those dynamics hold out in their match, I think that'll be one of the more interesting parts of it. Of course, along with the work, I don't think there's any chance that we're going to see a title change on that show, but as a first challenger, you could do much worse than Willie Mack. And if Lio is staying around, I would not use him as the first challenger. Definitely seems like someone that you could build up to give Alex Kane a much more credible title challenge. And that is what we had for the show. This was a pretty good follow-up. Definitely some things being closed off. It looks like for sure that we are done with Taya Valkyrie as part of the division. This was the last thing that she taped for MLW. Also, it looks like probably the end of the road for John Hennigan. Maybe we will get some backstage segments. I don't think he has taped anything else for the company either. Of course, he is now with AEW. And we set up a new title challenger in Willie Mack. So I assume over the next few weeks, of course, we have the Opera Cup, which I believe starts next week. And of course, that's Davey Boy Smith Jr. versus Tankman and Tony Deppen versus Hot Sauce. That's going to be Deppen's debut for the company. And I think coming off the Microman angle, that probably, I think it's probably Davey Boy Smith's tournament to win, for what it's worth, and I'm not sure exactly how much that is worth, but I guess you have to keep Davey Boy Smith hot for that eventual Microman match. I don't know, because Microman also attacks Sam Adonis, so we could be going that way. There's just so many options that you have when you want to feud Microman with someone. But that's probably going to be a vehicle to reintroduce Davey Boy Smith into the MLW mix going into Fury Road. Of course, we're going to have an update on Becca, and then I suppose we'll be hearing more from the Calling and following up on their tag team victory as well next week. But it looks like our immediate destination is finishing up the April tapings, which included the entire Opera Cup, all 3 matches. It does look like Delmi Exo is going to be going over to Germany with WXW in August, and she will be taking both titles and defending both titles with her, so congratulations to her. Hopefully we can get some of that footage on the show. I imagine that wouldn't be too much of a hard get there, since she is a champion for both companies. Alright, coming up later this week, I'm working on the Teddy Long episode. I know it's been taking a lot longer than I originally promised. Just dealing with a few things away from the podcast. But I am going to make sure to get back on a schedule here with Fusion Dish. I appreciate all of the support. We did reach over 100 downloads last week of everything here on the podcast feed, and I am incredibly grateful. And so thank you all for supporting the podcast that I'm not sure anyone was asked for, but someone challenged me to review MLW, and I'm going to do it. I'm stubborn. And we're going to keep doing it because I'm excited to see where we go with this next 5 or so week build into our next Fight Plus event. Of course, you can support the podcast, of course, by downloading it, giving it a review here on Google or Apple Podcasts. Feel free to go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Miss Erin Quinn. I do want to throw in here at the end that I am running a GoFundMe. I am trying to move out of the state of Texas where I live, just due to the nature, the economic factors of living here are way too much for any normal person working a regular job. And also the political climate here is one that makes me feel unsafe, to put it lightly. And so if you want to take a look at that, that's pinned on my Twitter feed at Miss Erin Quinn. Sharing, of course, helps, and if you're able to contribute, only if you're able to, it is greatly appreciated. So I thank you for that. I want to thank again Joe Lanza for today's opening. Joe recorded a number of openings that we'll be using over the next few weeks, so I want to thank the King of Banter for that, and all of my friends out there in the wrestling Twitter sphere for enjoying and supporting this project, and I will see you next week as we cook up another delicious fusion dish.